A number of our poets tonight are also novelists, and Kevin Powers is no exception. He wrote a wonderful novel called The Yellow Birds, and his collection of poems, Letter Composed During a Lull in the Fighting, has got all the things that novelists can do. It brings the novelist's craft to these poems: plot, narrative, character. But it seems to me that what makes these into superb poems is that they'll take the soldier's life and they'll make it available for myth. I think that's what the best poems do. They take something and they make it available for myth. They say, within this life, within these occurrences, myths can happen. There are poems of war here, of training, of homecoming. There's an epigraph to one of the poems from Susan Sontag, who just says, images anesthetize. And I kind of know what she means, but I disagree with that. I disagree with Susan Sontag. I think that they don't. Kevin's images wake us up and they make us feel more alive, more somehow that things are happening around us. Just want to quote from one of his poems. I am home and whole, so to speak. The streetlights are in place along the avenue, just as I remembered, and just as I remember there is tar slick on the poles because it's rained. It doesn't matter. I know these roads will work their way to me. And somehow, on an ordinary street, there we have this place available for myth through a poet's gifts, a novelist's gifts. Sadly, Kevin can't be with us tonight, but we're going to get the poems read by Caleb Klaces, and Kevin was insistent that Caleb could read them, and we know that he'll read them well. So please welcome Caleb.
Cumberland Gap. I first realized I was evaporating when I was 12, having heard for the first time the word embarcadero from some boy leafing through a battered copy of a AAA road atlas tucked onto a shelf. One volume in the series of books of maps that had for a long time comprised the section of the library devoted to geography. It was a place, but not in any real sense except the one I'd guessed at, the exotic newness of a word that finished with a vowel, and if I, in the library of a worn-out already rural school, created in my mind a picture that could be called a fair approximation of the place as it existed, the long line of the esplanade falling off into the distances, perhaps the fine grey of the Pacific reaching through the uncertainty of fog. And then at night, the book of maps now left open on a table, I could create the bustle of a group of stars that never were. I'd be called lucky or just dead wrong, and for a moment motionless, I'd be clearly drawn to scale upon the page with just the clarity that I had hoped for, not knowing the fruitlessness of having clarity among one's hopes. When the librarian called my name was made into a kind of spell, dispersing everything I could identify or claim as being part of one certain, undisputed me. The long walk down the hall as she held my hand, deferring every question I might ask until a later time. And I remember the bright red dusk of dried-up clay that swung in liquid-looking rivulets as I sat in the parking lot and waited for my father's Chevy to appear, knowing only that someone was dying, thinking only of the word embarcadero, any place other than the place I was forced to occupy in time and space, any name of any town that's weight could be abandoned with enough repeating, and giving up at last, the last of the other children gone, hearing in my father's voice his philosophy of living. Always buy a Chevy, son. Those goddamn Fords are designed for obsolescence. The plan C is in 5 years it'll break down and you'll have to buy another. and asked if it was like the broken bicycle he'd bought for me, that we'd repaired, one piece at a time until it works, how when we screwed the last bolt onto the new sprocket, the old bike was no longer there, everything replaced, the broken pieces set aside, and what did it mean? And his face, which I remember over everything, lined with a map-like certainty of shame, because he had no answer, offered none, and then the tracks of the Chevy's tires turned up the dust again, the pine trees bright and luminous, with their late spring blanketing of pollen underneath the unreal quality of light in which we lived, until I climbed into the seat beside him, that rag he had by then begun to cough into, already resting on his knee. Letter composed during a lull in the fighting. I tell her I love her like not killing, or 10 minutes of sleep beneath the low rooftop wall on which my rifle rests. I tell her in a letter that will stink when she opens it of bolt oil and burnt powder and the things it says. I tell her how Private Bartle says, offhand, that war is just us making little pieces of metal pass through each other. After leaving Maguire Veterans Hospital for the last time. This is the last place you'll ever think you know. You would be wrong, of course. There is time enough to find other rooms to be reminded of, other windows to look out, chipped sills to lean against that rub your elbows raw. January is not so cold here as it is elsewhere, a little gift. When the wind blows, it is its music you remember, not its chill, as it shakes the empty branches and arrives wherever wind arrives. Go there, then, there. Follow the long and slender blacktop as it struggles east along the banks through sprawling fog not destined to survive its movement in the morning toward the sea. And toward the sea, the sound of singing ceases, silences beginning with a sputter and a cough as the driver of the truck you hitchhiked in pulls off, and one more cloud of dust in your life of clouds of dust disintegrates as evening settles in. What song is this, you remember the immigrant clinician asked. And now again along a shoreline in the night you realize your life is just a catalogue of methods, every word of it an effort to stay sane. Count to 10 whenever you begin to shake. If pain of any kind is felt, take whatever is around into your hands and squeeze, push your feet as far as they will go into the earth. Burial is likely what you're after anyway. If it's unseemly, these thoughts, or the fact that the last unstained shirt you wore was on a Tuesday, a week ago or more, do not apologize. If you've earned anything, it is the right to be unseemly, while you decide at what point the bay becomes the ocean. What is the calculus of change required to find what's lost if what is lost is you? Is that a song you hear out there where the reeds begin to end on every curvature of coast? Is its refrain asking what you will remember? Or is it saying, no, don't tell, ever? You'll realize you're clinging to a tree islanded amidst a brackish sea of bulrush, the call of whippoorwills and all the emptiness you asked for. No reply, the nautilus repeats its pattern, a line of waves beats on forever as you enter them. Somewhere a woman washes clothes along the rocks. It was true what you said. You came home with nothing, and you still have most of it left.